Good morning, Superkickin with Stephen and Greg fans. Your favorite host right here, the Greg one over there, Stephen A. 1181 right here. Hope you are having a lovely Saturday. It is Mother's Day weekend, so we got to give a big shout out to all the moms. In the famous words of Phoenix Suns star Kevin Durant, you the real MVPs. Or in the famous words of Mr. T, I love all the moms. So we got some. Oh, you good there, Greg?
Oh, can't hear you. Who's it?
Oh. Hear me now?
There we are.
Okay. Yeah, there was a little weird. It almost sounded like a fan or something. But anyways, all right. So yes, Mother's Day weekend. I got to give a big shout out to Greg, to my sister Bernadette, as she gets married today. So I will have a busy, full day. Heading there about 3. The ceremony kicks off about 4:30. Then the reception. So it will be a long evening of merriment, as they say, Greg. But you, my friend, are not in merriment, are you, with your Phoenix Suns taking the L, as they say, going down to the Nuggets? We're getting the Lakers and Nuggets in the semifinals. And then we had the Heat move on, and then is it Celtics and Sixers in Game 7, I believe?
Yep.
So I think they said Doc Rivers 16th Game 7, which is crazy stat. It just shows how it goes, Greg. I think for you guys, it'll all be about next year. Getting Kevin Durant a full offseason to work out with Booker, really mesh things. But it sounds like the biggest thing is what's going to happen to Chris Paul. He might be on the outs just because of contract and maybe going younger. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Brutal week for me and my team. Suns did not go out in a blaze of glory. They got the doors blown off of them at home to close out the series in Game 6, and it was just a matter of we're too top heavy. We had 4 stars that we were banking on to go to the championship with, and of course one went down for the duration with Chris Paul in Game 2. Then DeAndre was hurt in Game 6, and we have no bench, so they were just banking on the strength of those 4 to carry them through. And I kind of knew it was ill-fated to begin with, given what they gave up to get Durant.
Yeah.
But if you watch, when Booker and Durant get going, they are unstoppable. I mean, that's why they were able to take 2 games after going down 0-2 to start the series. But they need to get into the offseason, pick up some solid players to come off the bench, add some depth, and that Chris Paul contract is going to be huge. He's getting $30 million to stay on the contract or stay on the team next year, so they can trade him or release him and get half of that savings back to use on a younger, more durable guard. So they have some decisions to make, but they're so top heavy salary wise with what they're paying Durant and Booker and DeAndre that there's barely room to sign anybody else. So they got some work to do, but they can retool and bring in some solid depth to come off the bench. They'll be right back as a top seed in the playoffs and having KD for a whole season as opposed to the last 20 games or whatsoever. Um, and they only played 8 games before the playoffs
Hopefully a
started.
full season.
Right, right. Aside from the load management games off, we can play most of us a full season. They're going to be the number 1 seed next year, and they'll be right back in the same position. So,
And Chris
but getting
Paul,
rid
are
of
you
Paul is
rumored?
going to be a
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. They need to, as much as I hate to say it, they need to go ahead and move away from Chris Paul because for 2 seasons in a row he's broken down in this exact time in the playoffs, and it's time to get to somebody younger to take its place and just keep the ball rolling for continuity's sake. And he's making way too much money and he's 38 years old. So it's that time. As much as I hate to say it, he was the catalyst that got all these stars turning their heads towards Phoenix. When he signed up, guys were like, "Oh, okay, something must be happening over here," and that started it. But now they're a team they're a destination team for guys who are going to be looking for a new squad. So, he made his impact, but it's time to let him go. Hopefully he retires is my best scenario for him, but we'll see.
He's got to try to get to that finals, though. I think that will kind of eat away at him. So, of course, the Lakers are emerging, Greg, as the favorites to get him because why not? The Lakers are the destination for ring chasing, as Karl Malone and Gary
Yeah,
Payton tried to do that, which we saw how well that worked out. But I mean,
right.
crazy to see the Lakers with their hodgepodge, as they call it, of just names there, Greg. I mean, if Anthony Davis and LeBron could keep cooking, though, we might get the Celtics Lakers of the old school days back in the finals. So, um,
I hope not. I want Denver to take it now. I mean, it was double bat weekend for me because if the Suns weren't going to succeed, then I wanted the Warriors, and both my teams got bounced on consecutive days. So it's like now I don't care, but anybody but the Lakers. So I'm taking the Bray Wyatt approach on this one. Anybody but you, Lakers.
wow, good segue. Look at this. Bray Wyatt's WWE return is up to management and him. Tweeted Boozer Wrestling, Greg. I don't know who the heck Boozer Wrestling is, but it was all my rumors and rumblings, so I said, why not? I've heard also maybe him and Alexa Bliss could be paired up back together. Um, it's always that wait and see. Do you think, Greg, we see Bray Wyatt back? I'm going to say after Night of Champions. I think we need to see him back. What about you?
I hope so. I mean, he is amazing when he's on screen. They still haven't said what happened and what the reason is that he's been um, he's disappeared since right before WrestleMania, and so without knowing the reason, we definitely want to see him back. Want to see
Yeah.
him, play those characters as only he can. And I was noticing that nobody drafted him,
Mm-hmm.
so he should have
That's
been
probably
definitely a
telling.
night 1 or night 2. That was a huge tell. And when you look at the rosters for both brands, if I remember correctly, he's not on either roster.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that something is definitely up. Um, of course, he can pop in at any time as the newest hot free agent that just signed to whatever brand is. So they can still do that. But I thought it was very telling that he wasn't drafted and he doesn't show up on either of the rosters. So
What would you like to see him come back? The more I think about it, Greg, when he first returned, I think that's the route they should have gone. Just kind of let him play, like they always say, an exaggerated version of himself. You know, I don't. We probably don't. If we're going to do the Fiend or something, we need something different with it, right?
yeah, and
And
what they were doing was great. I mean, I was digging what they were doing with the life size characters of the Funhouse
mhm,
and thinking about applying those characters to guys and girls that were on the roster.
yeah,
And we don't know what's going to happen with it. And they're just kind of it's still up in the air, and there's mileage they can get out of that if they decided to do it. So,
Who comes back first, Bray Wyatt or CM Punk?
oh man, I'd put my money on Bray if I'm a betting man, but
With
I don't know, depending on what the rumors are these days.
Punk, yeah. Here's the other thing too about Braun Breaker, which I think we've mentioned all along, Greg, coming back now after or coming up to the main roster after SummerSlam, and I think that's a perfect plan for him. Let him really, like you've talked about as well, really um, hone in on this heel character, and then that way,
Hmm.
when they call him up, he can go either direction. If he's really comfortable in either role. Um, I still think I'd probably bring him up as a face, just because you want to get the crowd kind of behind him at first, just like we saw Cameron Grimes last night, Greg, which we'll bring up in our SmackDown recap. But I think I'd bring in Braun Breaker as a face first, and kind of see what he could do. Pick
Hmm.
up some wins, and then maybe later, probably next year if they think, unless they're really feeling strongly about the heel side of things. But it feels like this is still early on in his heel career, Greg. But I think he's better suited for the face side of things. So I'm guessing you're kind of the same impression that keeping him down there for now, and then let him come up after SummerSlam is the best plan for him.
Yeah, definitely. The guy's going to be a beast no matter what side of the coin he plays, but I am really enjoying his heel work right now. It's not crazy. It's not
That's
um, right. He's not so extra that he's unbelievable.
mhm.
He's being the same guy, just got some more ferocity about him. He's
Yeah,
more uh, of a brute, of a punisher, and it comes across authentically on the screen.
yeah,
So I've really been enjoying what he's been done since he changed characters. All he's done is put a go to the all black, and I notice on his trunks it says "meaner than evil," which I like.
yeah.
Um, that's a kind of a slogan that nobody's really tapped into.
Mhm.
So that's cool, and everything's been looking good optics wise
Mhm.
with him doing the heel turn. So, and him and Carmelo, there's no better place to um, work that out against the biggest star and get that heel work in there. He's been great, and I want to see more of it. And this, like I said, lets him see both sides of the coin. We've seen
Yeah,
how he's done as a face for a year almost, and
yeah,
now we get to see how he does as a face for a year, and now we can see
yeah,
how he does as a heel for another couple months
yeah.
until after SummerSlam. So I think it's a great idea. Let him flesh out his characters, let him get in that work, and it's probably better to bring him up as a face when you come up, like he says, like you say, and you can lean into the Steiner name and the Steiner lineage, and
Mhm.
I think to do that, you all have a ready-made fan base for him outside of the people who watch him in NXT, and he'll be off and running.
And it is crazy. I think all along we thought Mello would be the heel, but Mello and Trick kind of started as heels,
Right.
and then I think people saw what good work they were doing organically. They just kind of made face side, but kind of like Swerve, Strickland in a way. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see, and then when Mello gets called up, which direction will they go with him? Um, we're still holding out hope, maybe Hurt Business 2.0, but I think that thing was such a flash in the pan. Maybe you don't want to force it back together like they did. So, yeah. So those are a couple things. Was there anything WWE wise that caught your eye, Greg? And then, kind of like we've changed our format, we'll do AW news because there's a $1 billion story out there floating. So, do you have any other WWE side? And then we'll take a quick commercial break as we get into our reviews of all the shows this week.
Uh, Nothing else I've seen on the rumor mill yet.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess I was going to bring up Trinity. She's in Impact Wrestling now. I didn't know where to put that in the wrestling realm of things, Greg, but it'll be interesting to kind of see what she does down there. Um, she's going right after the Knockouts title, possibly. So you wonder if they'll put the title on her. So we'll just kind of
okay.
keep that in the rear view mirror, as it were, and see where things are headed. Um, I wonder if there might be a Mercedes Trinity reunion sooner rather than later, Greg, just with them both kind of out there. So we can always kind of keep that in the rear view mirror, as they say, of things. But we'll do a quick commercial break and then get into some shows this week. I know last week we did all Backlash previewing and predictions, Greg. So we got to get caught up on our Raw, SmackDown, and NXT this week. All right, so we got our Raw review here happening for you. We'll kind of hit some of the big highlights and then, catch in the little details here and there. The big stuff, Greg, was all about the WWE World Heavyweight title and how that's going to be taking place at Night of Champions. Cody Rhodes opened the night, talked about it. Seth Rollins did defeat Shinsuke Nakamura and Damian Priest to move on. We also had the other, then we had Finn Balor defeat Cody Rhodes and The Miz because of the Beast back, Greg, looking for a fight, as it were. Sorry, I should do like this, get right in the camera face.
Right.
Sometimes, Greg, when Brock gets a little into it, it's a little over the top, but yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the stipulation will be for Cody and Brock. But, I think we said all along, Seth Rollins was the odds-on favorite, so he's moving on, Greg. Him and Finn Balor, there's one side of me, Greg, I'm like, come on, just give Finn the win. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So Seth Rollins will move on. But I think the bigger news is we'll get Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar round 2, Greg. I'm guessing no holds barred, or, it'd be cool if they could do the fight pit. But I think being in Saudi Arabia, they're not going to go that route just because it doesn't really mean anything out there, Greg. So yeah. We'll kind of see. Probably, I'm guessing, like I said, no holds barred, or no DQ, something like that. And Brock probably should pick up this win, and then maybe the third one at SummerSlam, unless they want to do it before that. I don't mind, but we'll kind of see where things are at after that. But what are you thinking about Brock and Cody round 2, Greg?
I love it. I love Brock in this role as a heel. He's the best as a heel, and just being the unstoppable force that he is. And that promo, if you call it that, where he just
I don't know what
gets into the camera and screams into the mic, and you know what? That's not far off from what he was in the UFC, because I'm sure somebody has his reel of post-fight interviews somewhere. But if you go back to Brock's UFC career and his post-fight interviews, they were a lot like that, over the top, and yelling and celebrating, and that kind of is what it reminded me of after his fights. And that moment where he had Cody in a big old chokehold, and he's screaming about he wants to fight, and he obviously, you see very well, he hard weighed himself badly on that night.
There's a few big bruises on him.
Yeah, and one zipper right in the middle of his forehead, or right above
the nose one too. Yeah, the one under his nose, and then the eye. I mean, it was pretty. I think you let Cody dig into him a little bit too. Just to kind of make it even worse. So.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was UFC heavyweight champ. He could take it.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to bet he encouraged it. So, and it looks more legitimate, more authentic on TV with the black eye and the busted face, and him screaming, "Look at my face! What you did!" So I loved it. It's going to be awesome, and I think this should be the one that Brock takes it because we're not having a wrestling match. We're having a fight, and there's nobody better. And they keep touting um, his
Combat
credits.
combat sports now. They keep
Right.
calling him.
Most decorated combat sports athlete. So, you got to let him prove it and win this one. Then you have a, 1-1 going into the third one. It makes more sense. So I'm ready for it. It's going to be
Do you think
awesome.
we save it out that third one till SummerSlam? Maybe Cody
Um,
Rhodes could be Money in the Bank, and he gets taken out there or something.
like whatever the next big pay-per-view is like that scheduled
We have
pay-per-views is too
we
long.
have Night of Champions at
Yep.
the end of this month. Then we have Money in the Bank in July. So I get, we could probably play it out to SummerSlam actually. Now that
Yeah, I mean, you can still have the third one go some type of non-finish or whatever,
yeah,
and then cap it off at SummerSlam. So you get more mileage out of it for sure.
yeah. And then Seth Rollins in the world title picture, it's his to lose, right? Because we don't want
Yeah,
AJ, who just got drafted to SmackDown, drafted back because they said this will be a Raw title. So,
right.
I don't know if they'll play up anything in there, but this is all. But like I said, there was a part of me that's like, man, Ben Bauer, Rhea Ripley with all the gold in Judgment Day, that would
Hmm.
look for them. But they're really high on Rhea, so you could tell. Now, Greg, let's bring up Rhea. She defeated Dana Brooke. How about the little kid that just totally, ignored her as she was looking for a high five on the ramp? And then we get freaking Natalia.
Yeah.
That's all.
The,
That's all there is to say about that. That's her next talent.
yeah, yay, Natalia.
We're short on her,
Way to
but how about Zoe Stark though? I thought she looked really good in her Raw debut, Greg, on the mic, backstage. I thought she came across quite well, compared to I think it helped her finally finding some personality. And now she just needs to help Von Wagner with that. But I thought she came across very well in her Raw debut. Actually,
Yeah, she looked good. She had a good match. The finish looks good and clean, and
Mhm.
she's got something. I mean, it's better than she was showing on NXT,
Yeah,
and she could be that rare example of stars who come up from NXT and are actually um, cast in a better light and
yeah.
perform better than the other way around.
That's
So
kind of been the trend though recently. If you think about with Riddle, Damian Priest, well Imperium. Look at Imperium. So I think we're finally finding that good. I think they're being more ready down there too. We're not calling them up too quickly as it
yeah, and a lot of
were.
it could have been the Vince effect too, because
Yeah, he was running 2.0. That's true.
right.
So, then the other side of women's things, Becky and Trish. Do you think we see them at Night of Champions, Greg, or do we think we might wait that out somewhere else?
Given Saudi Arabia and their hesitation for women's wrestling, even now, I mean, I think they just tolerate it. They don't embrace it. So I think it's better to wait until after Night of Champions to put those two together and um, give it the attention it deserves and that reaction from the crowd that it deserves. Because, in Saudi Arabia, they're pretty much going to sit on their hands and they're going to cheer for the wrong person. And
You
um,
might cheer for
so I don't trust them
Trish.
with that match. So it needs to be played out stateside.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to, you could just let it be the main event of a Raw. Kind of play that up as Trish main eventing Raw again. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the women's side of things. Mustafa Ali, Greg, keeps picking up little wins here and there. But of course, the big story there is, Maxine. I'd still love a swerve, and all along, Maxine and Chad Gable end up somehow on the same page, Greg, and kick Otis to the curb. But we'll see where that goes. Dominic picked up a good win too over Xavier Woods, and then how about the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Imperium little backstage stuff? I really enjoyed that, and then they had a pretty good match together. So, any
Yeah.
thoughts on kind of anything that the little things, any story you'd like to hit there, Greg, is fine with me.
No, it was a good show altogether, and it's a good way to kind of showcase the draft picks, and get them on the screen.
Yeah.
Half of them were just going to be quick pops backstage and, introducing themselves and thinking of Imperium and, walking around backstage like, hear ye, Gunther is coming, and that type of thing. But it was a way to get their faces on screen and, let them show up for a minute.
And we'll have a battle royal I saw next week to determine Gunther's next challenger. So I'm assuming we'll see him some capacity next week, and really let him, even though he's already been on Raw twice. But who remembers that, Greg? So anyway, and it's interesting. The first one was with Seth Rollins. I think that was the NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown, and I think we saw Seth Rollins and Gunther go at it. So they've always been high on him, obviously. So
yeah,
let's get into some. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You can finish up.
No, and shout out to Seth and Finn for a banger of a main event.
Yes.
Loved that match. It was great. The finish was great.
Buckle Bomb by Finn Balor, which was a nice touch to kind of play up that.
Right. And just reprising that first time, the Universal Championship was presented and having the same two people going for it the second time around. So loved that touch on it. And, they delivered in the top spot. So, good show all around, I think.
Yep. Some NXT stuff. So we're into the Women's Championship, Greg. We saw Tiffany Stratton, who was my hands-on pick. I think you just got to finally pull the trigger on her, Greg, and give her the title. And then Lyra, she keeps picking up some good wins. I feel like they're pretty high on her because she keeps showing up in these, tournaments. She was in that the challenge, whatever that. There was some challenge I remember her being in. But I still think it's all about Tiffany Stratton. Who is your pick, Greg, for the Women's Championship next?
Yeah, I'm. The more I watch it, it looks like Tiffany is the most ready.
Yeah,
and
is that too obvious then?
You'd think, yeah. Usually don't go with the most obvious thing. The other women that just, they don't have that it factor that Tiffany does. She stands out more than the others do.
And we're still kind of picking up JC Jane and Gigi Dolan. Like, I feel like one of those two would have been a good pick, but it feels like they're keeping them away from the title so they can finish up their storyline.
Exactly. And when I look at it, Tiffany looks like Mandy Rose when she was in NXT doing the Golden Goddess gimmick.
Yeah.
If you remember that. I got to see it live, and, looking at Tiffany, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So she definitely has that it factor, and her ring work has even, gotten progressively better since she debuted. So
especially because she doesn't just show off the athleticism, like
right.
she's really selling stuff, and like you said. But I think the obvious choice just makes the most sense because you've kind of played, tag with the title. That's why the Indy Hartwell was still a weird choice, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, drafting the champions, that's a thing that they don't usually do. I mean, usually drop the title first.
And why does she lose her title, but then Alba and Fire don't lose their title? Or Fire and Dawn don't lose their title, which just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, like I said, if you would have, like you did play up the injury, you could have said, I have to vacate it. But she didn't even really say those words. She just said, I have to really, I just have to give up the title. But then, last night we had SmackDown, the NXT Women's Champions watching the tag team match. So that could be it too, Greg. Maybe we're going to, I still think unify them is probably the best thing to do for the women's side of things. So, we also had Dyad lose. We saw the rumblings. Apparently, they both tweeted out that they asked for the release, and then those tweets were deleted. So who knows what the heck's going on with them? But Gallus keeps picking up wins. Looks like Diamond Mine might be after them next. Duke Hudson defeated Javi Body Greg. Duke Hudson when does he finally take over and break out from chase you? Because it looks like it's coming sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting for the implosion from within to happen,
Yeah.
and it still hasn't. Lately, touches on the mentioning Duke University, and he
Mm-hmm.
just stops himself. Oh wait, that's already been done.
Duke you.
And yeah, so that's pretty funny. And I don't know if it was us or I saw it somewhere where it was rumored that um, Simone, or I can't remember her names now because Rockstarter is about to head up to the Bloodline.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the dyad, nobody's in on it. I mean, without Joe Gacy and his Bray Wyatt s, you know, dark promos and things like that going on, they're not interesting, and they're not doing anything with them really.
It feels like they
Um,
just can't figure out what to do with it.
yeah, so
They try to go darker, and then they don't go. They don't fully commit to it.
yeah, so I don't blame them for wanting their release.
Yeah.
Ava, that's what I couldn't think of her name.
Ava Rain. Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
yeah, and
Yeah, we'll see.
why not bring her up?
Mhm. Yeah, if you don't have Naomi available, so Eddie
Right.
Thorpe picks up a big win over Damon Kemp. Ela, Dragunov, and Dijak looks like they're headed for some sort of stipulation match. I'm all for that, Greg. Dragunov just brings it when he has to face these bigger guys, doesn't he?
That's what I'm talking about, man. Dragunov, that's my dude.
I'm
I
surprised he
love
didn't
that
get
guy.
called up. Actually, I wonder if maybe after summer. Do you think it's just too soon for him?
Well, I think it's probably just finally worked out his visa issues
Yeah,
or
so
whatever
now
was
he can
keeping him off TV for so long, and now
work
it's
down
time for
there
him
for a little
to,
bit.
yeah, and bring him up after SummerSlam or bring him up next year after the draft. He's not a bad guy to leave down there and
That's true.
give some star power to NXT for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, in Dijak, you wonder if he'll get another shot as this current character and see what he can do on the main roster. But William Regal's son keeps picking up wins. Charlie Dempsey picks over Tyler Bate, but it looks like Tyler Bate wants the North American title, doesn't it, Greg?
Yep. Why else to align yourself with the champion if you're not getting ready for a showdown? And I'm ready for it. And not that I'm not digging Wesley. He's growing on me like a mold. But and that finisher of his is it's impressive every time I
Yeah,
see it. It reminds me of the Kinshasa that
yeah.
every time I see it, I think he's going to kick him with the other leg, and the other leg is what hits the guy. So that move is really impressive, super acrobatic, and his matches have gotten better. But I'm still a Tyler Bate guy. I want to see him hold the strap. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the impending clash because it's coming at some point.
And that's another name, this time next year, I feel like Tyler Bate, either working in the main roster or, getting called up soon. And
Yeah,
then 4 guys, Greg, that looked like they should all just be a a big faction, right? Josh Briggs, Brooke Jensen defeat Hank Walker and take Ledger. Just put them all together and
yep,
give me some sort of beer money light. If we can call it something, Country Boys or something, Greg, with a Z. Back in,
right.
like we used to do back in the day, at Z all the end of boys. But yeah. Any thoughts on any of that for Briggs and Jensen pick up a win?
Yeah, I've never been on that team at all. I mean, it's just the picture of stock character, and
Still hard to
it's
believe they were UK champs, Greg. Like of all the UK stars you could think of, and yeah,
right.
you have
Those two,
two country boys. So
but I
at
agree.
least they
Put them
did a
all in
little
a
bit
faction,
different
and
with Briggs. I like his new look because of the work with Kiana. Like, give him a
yeah,
little different look. But like you said, Hank Walker looks like a created character on WWE 2K. And you didn't even add, you're just like, nope, this is my character. Not going to add anything to him. So, but yeah. And it does, like some guys at work, like Charlie Dempsey, who's a wrestler, looks like a wrestler. like it worked for him to have, a plain look. But Hank Walker, I think you need something more with him. Yeah. All right. What about SmackDown? A few little things happened here and there on SmackDown, Greg. We had the heavyweight tournament on this side of things. AJ Styles, Edge, and Rey Mysterio. Man, you talk about three of the goats, just strapping it up and putting on a killer match.
Yep.
AJ picks up the win. And I don't know if you saw I know a lot of people were sharing Edge's, promo, I guess, Greg, before this, just saying, hey, what better way for me to get the world heavyweight title, a title I had to relinquish, essentially, and then lose it and call it a day. So the time is ticking, Greg, man. It's going to hurt more for Edge to go away this time, isn't it?
It is. I mean,
because he just put on such good stuff.
Man, that was the most three-person combination match or combination moves that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And those three were killing it, start to finish. It was so good. And usually, you have one guy on the outside while the other two are doing the fancy stuff, and all three of them are tandem doing the fancy moves. It was crazy. I haven't seen a match like that. So shout out to the three of them. But like they said on commentary, when you have 90 years of experience in the ring between three guys, you're going to get stuff like that. So that was hot. I loved it.
What do you think the timeline is for Edge? You think I think it's done this year.
Yeah, I mean,
could he maybe? I think pushing out to WrestleMania might be pushing it.
That's what I was thinking. Probably one more run that ends at WrestleMania, maybe as a farewell match, something like that. In which case, he could go to the end of the year and just Undertaker style go.
Go away. Might go away after Royal Rumble, maybe, or go away after Night of the Champ. Yeah, I guess there are options for him to. He can keep doing this, go home, get get better, and but yeah, I mean, it was tough that first time around, Greg, just because it was so sudden. But like I said, you can tell it is the end. It's almost like the Batista, aspect where we saw. You'll be curious. I wonder if he might do. He's done a little bit of the acting, though. Greg Edge has. You wonder if he might go that route and see what he can do there. Bobby Lashley picked up a win too. Probably not surprising that he picked up the win when he saw Sheamus and Austin Theory, right?
Yeah, well, it's going to be Theory, and Sheamus. They probably want to leave him on SmackDown because all he does is put on great matches, and so it seemed to be the easy choice and the most logical. You're looking at three, go which one would make sense going back to Raw, and it was the outcome you thought that it was going to be Sheamus, it was going to be Theory, so Lashley was the best choice.
Almost default. I mean, I guess you could have done Theory just to kind of, let him and AJ have at it, but we know Theory's not going to, win. So, you got to put some doubt in that.
Right.
So we did have AJ Styles defeat Bobby Lashley in a really fantastic main event. So now we're going to get Styles and Rollins again at Night of Champions. I think they're going to get a really good 20, 25-minute match. Now, I guess the question becomes, now that we've seen what the tag team championship is going to be, Greg, so we could bring that up. So Roman Reigns finally made his way back to, SmackDown. Really upset with the, his Usos, and says, hey, me and Solo are going to do this. So we're going to get Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn against Solo and Roman Reigns for the, tag team championships. Does that main event over the world heavyweight title because it is Roman?
It shouldn't.
But
yeah, I think if they were going to win, that it would.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a lot of belts for Roman to hold.
I know, but exactly, he's going to need his and Paul's shoulders every time.
But a couple suitcases.
I'm surprised he didn't say anything about the new championship at all.
Yeah.
Or
He did a
just
Heyman look back at it a couple times, and he did that on Raw too, right?
yeah, Heyman did, but
Yeah.
Roman hasn't acknowledged it in any way. Um, or spoken anything about it. But I love this promo, and you figure he's going to cast blame on the Usos and um, create that division,
Yeah.
and it did. But now the fun thing is going to be once because are you going to tell
Are
him
they
to
going to
get
cost
Sammy?
them the titles? Do you think the Usos cost them the titles at Night of Champions?
Yep, I mean that could be very, very possible. It was Jimmy. Is not. It was looked like he was ready to throw down. It was I always get Jimmy and Jay
Yeah.
screwed up even now. One of them was ready to fight,
Yeah.
and until the other brother stepped in and goes, "Okay, we apologize."
Well, it didn't help when Roman. I love Roman bringing up the Goodfellas um, commercial they did too. Like
Right,
bringing that to real, and then giving a little cheek slap. That's never you can't just let that sit there, Greg.
exactly. So and then followed up with the pad face. So um, it was good stuff they were doing. And it
I
made me
mean,
think of that promo. His promo
I
was
think
sick.
that I think this does main event. You know, just because
It's
it's Roman.
Yeah, but if they want the new champion to have the
Yeah,
the clout that
that's
Roman
true.
does, then you can't put it on
Well, that's a downfall.
before
They've already
Roman.
kind of mentioned this being like a consolation prize. So I guess you could, yeah. And AJ Styles, Seth Rollins getting the main event, and like we said, really tear it up in the main event. That's fine too. So um, I'll be very curious to see which direction we go. So, at least it is at a 1 p.m. start time here in the States, Greg. So that's nice to
Okay.
have a Saturday afternoon because you're off on Saturdays. So it'll be nice for you to just be able to take in a little
Right.
Saturday wrestling and then enjoy the evening as it were. But how about the Cameron Grimes? So now isn't he the official quickest victory? Didn't he beat Elias 3.1 or 3 minute 17-second match now?
He might have.
He only
He
did. I
might
mean, it
have.
was 3 seconds. It was like people were putting it as a GIF, and it like that's how short the match was. Um, I'm fine with it. We really are. Trying to push him. And I say then give him a real match against Baron and let him win again, right?
Right. And who didn't see that coming from a mile away?
Yeah.
Sure to put it on his Tron when he was coming out. His finishing move is still the cave in, so they didn't change
David,
that.
yep.
He still looks the same. I was disappointed he didn't come out with the hat because in the NXT the hat got over before he did.
Yeah.
And but they point out the cave in is still his move, and the way he's lined up, and it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen here, and boom, it happens. And yeah, to see what the official clock on that was. But yeah, I'm sure he beat Aaliyah. The one hashtag I didn't get over yet. Hashtag justice for Aaliyah.
Yeah.
And
That should have been a thing. But I think she got injured soon after, or close to it or whatever. But yeah, so Cameron Grimes picks up a good win. Also, we
looked
do have to
good.
bring up Grayson Waller. We'll get to be next week, Greg, with his talk show. And funny enough, he's going to be having AJ Styles, right, as his first guest. So that will be. Do we think that? I wonder if that leads to a match that evening, Greg.
Yeah, because they
Going to
already
let
gone at
Grayson
it
Waller
once.
have a few minutes of ring time. So.
Yeah.
How about your Asian girlfriend? She said she put a little extra spice in her miss last night on Twitter today, and Bianca Belair I think is still selling the miss, Greg.
Yep.
Montez is probably trying to help her see today.
Hey, I'm about it, man. You know me. I'm my hot Asian girlfriend. You need to follow through on this. I saw they changed her music again, and
Change
she's
up the
wearing
look a
street
little
clothes, so
bit.
only a little bit of makeup. So are they going to do the less is more with the makeup? But
Well, she had the gloves on. I thought she was going to do some hand shocker. Like, just like those old, because she had the gloves on, so I was like, well, they're covered, but then it was telling Greg when her mouth was closed the whole time. I was like, okay. But I assumed Bianca was going to get out of the way, but she took the full brunt of that miss. So yeah, maybe that's why.
Oh yeah,
it's a little
face
more deadly this
it.
time.
Hey, I mean, everybody knew it was coming, and Bianca still fell for it. I mean, like I said, her whole race has been unspectacular.
She even get to celebrate. Like Asuka came out. Like, what was very, I think it was most interesting or funny that Bianca was in like her wrestling gear. I almost thought, somebody was going to interrupt and then we were going to get a quick, 5-minute match just because she was in a wrestling gear. I don't think that's where her street clothes were. They
right. I mean, they can't let this go without Asuka winning the title. I mean, why reprise this if it's going to end in the same way?
another
So
loss.
I'm excited for it. I think that maybe we do get an Asuka with a couple more tweaks, and really lean into her heel side because she's obviously the heel now, and um, follow through on the project and let there be a legit rivalry because Bianca hasn't had a legit contender for a minute. I mean, but props to that the match she had with Io because that match was
at Backlash,
match of the night in my book. That match was killer. So she knows how to work with the smaller girls, and that match was a banger. And I know her and Asuka is going to be even better. Especially with the history and the story behind them now.
I just realized, Greg, we did not recap Backlash from last week, did we? Oh,
hey, a lot of ground to cover, man.
I'm the worst co-host ever. I just realized I was like, wait a minute, we did okay. Well, Backlash happened last week, and some people won. So sorry about that. If you didn't catch it, you didn't go catch the results on WWE.com. Because we're kind of halfway through the show, Greg. So kind of late. Bad Bunny, though, we do have to give props to Bad Bunny. Oh my God. The crowd singing his song, coming looking out like New Jack, and Damian Priest delivered as well. Damian Priest should be on a new level because of that, Greg. So
right. So much good stuff in that match. Buddy was killer. The whole Puerto Rican crowd was electric the whole night. Plus, what do you make of them talking about Bianca Belair booing Bianca out of the building the whole time against Io's guy? Chanting for Io and booing Bianca.
Yeah.
And I think that made them change the matchup a little bit to play into that because Io was getting all the love. You would have thought she was the champion. Everybody was in for it. And booing Bianca out of the building, that had to be weird for her.
And I guess it helped that being back in Knoxville last night, get some love back. But like you said, I just don't know if Asuka's going to get the title. But I mean, why else does she keep going after Yeah, I guess we should have moved on from this. But right now, I mean, if we're looking at Natalya going after Rhea, Greg, and now you have Asuka and Bianca part whatever it is. That kind of that's a little bit telling to the women's title pictures, right?
Right.
So hopefully some of the NXT up and comers and just building up new women, we can kind of let that end up better than what it's looking. But overall Backlash was just fantastic, and there's already rumblings that they want to make Backlash in Puerto Rico as a thing, and I think that's fine.
I can see why. Yeah.
Let that be their big event. Don't go there any other times, Greg, and just go there for a weekend. I'm sure the superstars would love it because it's Puerto Rico. You get a little beach vacation. Work a SmackDown show, and then work an evening show, and maybe take that Sunday and have a little beach day, and then go back. We did see that little promo with Wade Barrett getting his drink delivered to him the cameraman decided to set his sights on the woman a little bit longer, but that's okay. But yeah, and then the Usos and Solo picking up a win. We were because I think we missed two of our predictions because we said
True.
they would win, and did we say Cody would win, right? Or no, we said Brock would win, and Cody picked
Brock.
up the win. So we did go two, and props to Zelina.
She looked great.
I don't mind seeing the people are like, "Whoa, she should see the emotions." We've seen the four horsewomen cry many a times, Greg. It's okay to show, because you could turn it around and get right into the moment. I mean, we saw from Bianca and Sasha, when they main evented, especially being two black women main event. I mean, whoever. So I'm fine with emotion in the ring because that brings out that is the realism. That shows how much this means. So Backlash was really strong show, and like I said, if they go back there, awesome. Just make it a thing. Let the Puerto Rican crowd kind of. I don't know if we need Bad Bunny over here, but even though he did deliver, but let it. Oh, and Savio Vega and Carlito back in the mix, so that was kind of cool to see. I hadn't thought about Savio.
Oh man, we forgot about Savio since the Attitude Era. I mean, nobody's like.
He didn't do anything, Greg. So I don't know if he can do much anymore because I kept waiting for him to at least hit a punch. But you had LWO come out. You had Carlito do his thing. So it'd be nice to have Carlito on like a Legends contract. Let him come here and there. Maybe talk show. His what was his talk show? Carlito's Cabana or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah. So especially with somebody talk show host, Greg, it'd be really nice for him to just do a couple things here and there. But So.
But that hit my prediction of a new member.
New members.
Two new members. At least if they honorary members. You get two new characters we didn't know of. So
like I
was like, I knew it. Somebody's coming out.
Savio Vega, though, that was a name that hadn't heard of him in a while. So. All right, let's get a quick commercial break into some AEW news. We got to talk about their possible $1 billion deal with Warner Brothers and what that could mean for the All In show, Greg, because it sounded like that could maybe end up on HBO Max, which would be a fantastic idea. So we'll get into that here in a second. We need to do that. Let's get into this in just a second. Let's get you some elite performance talk, and then we'll get right into that. So there's a big deal, and this could go a couple different routes, Greg, that the Warner Brothers and AEW are possibly working on a deal together. I mean, I would think it's probably about time for the TV deal to be up, so no wonder that they're working on a new one, kind of get this going. It's possibly worth $1 billion. This is also in ties with the new show, Greg, called Collision, which could kick off in June 17th, because that ties into CM Punk coming back around, which they want to make him the focal point. And, like we kind of talked about last week, that there's the idea that if you're cool with Punk, you're on that show. If you're not cool with Punk, you're on Dynamite, whatever that means. And if Punk has to show up on Dynamite, then those guys shift. So it's not, but, we do talk about, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT being a bit much. Would a new show on Saturday night be a bit much for AEW right now, Greg?
It would be. I mean, when you're an established brand like WWE and you've been around for decades, 6, 7, 8 decades, and you add a third show, people are like, okay. But AEW is still 4 years old almost. They may not. They're a few months away from 4 years old, and they're adding a third show, which is, it's hard enough to consume the two shows they have out now.
I was gonna
If
say, doesn't
you're not counting
Rampage will lose its luster, which it already
exactly.
has.
We've already don't even mention Dark and Dark Elevation. So
Which I
they're
think
really
they've gone away anyway, is what I've been reading.
well. I don't think anybody noticed. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, adding a third show now is just overcompensating. It's not achieving anything. I mean, if we're going to make it another 2 hour show to go with a post SmackDown and just do away with Rampage, do that. But add a third show Saturday night, people are out, social engagements, getting their party on, enjoying their weekend. You're going to ask them to sit for 2 hours and watch rest, or 1 hour or 2 hours in the middle of a Saturday night and watch more AEW. I think you're overdoing it because, you've done great so far, but, you need to build up the resume and get that fan base over, where you get a couple million viewers a show before you start looking at something like that.
I mean, I guess you could.
They're just spreading themselves too thin.
We have talked about, there are guys that never get any TV time, so maybe this is the way, Miro, like maybe this is the way to build him up on there. Kip Sabian, maybe this gives him, the Butcher and the Blade, maybe this gives them avenue to kind of be more featured, Greg. I think the toughest part is just back to back too, right? If you have Friday Rampage, Saturday Collision, like that's a lot to take in just in 2 days. It'll be very interesting to see what they do, because there has been talk as well that maybe this leads to some sort of soft brand split. So Punk and whoever's good with him, is on Collision every Saturday night, and then the Elite and whoever they're cool with is a Dynamite, crew. But now also, Greg, I do think if this deal goes through, they did say maybe HBO Max, which will become just Max soon. I think at the end of this month, could all in be on there, and I think that would be a fantastic idea to do. Make the first, this big show from the UK at a much cheaper deal, so you can get more eyeballs on it. Even though I think there are going to be plenty of eyeballs on it anyway. But if I'm only paying $10 for HBO Max, there might be more people entitled, intrigued to do that. So I would love to see that, be the first kind of show on there. Then if the next week you want to make All Out on pay-per-view, it is what it is. But I'm be curious to see what they do as far as that is, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, my two things is as far as goes with Collision, put it on the same night as Rampage, where you already have that built-in audience ready to see it. And if you want to do it like AEW does live, where you have Dynamite and the Dynamite segment ends, and then you change the apron, you have Rampage right after it, and you save the taping for Friday night. Why can't you do the same thing and just have Collision go on behind it and just put it in? Everybody wrestles one night, and you get it all out the way. I think that would be the easiest thing. And then as far as going to Max, it is about damn time. The pay-per-view model is really, really outdated. I mean, you're not boxing and you're not MMA. I mean, going to still doing the $59, $60 route is. I'd love to see their numbers and how many buys they get, because I'm sure it pales in comparison to boxing and UFC or MMA in general. And they're going to get so many more, incrementally more people watching their pay-per-view shows if they go to streaming and put it on Max. I already have HBO Max. So I'm like, let's go, let's get it. So I'm not going to pay $60 to watch one show, and going to the movie theater is a good idea. Broadcasting for the movie theater for I think $25 is what they do it for in the theaters.
I wonder if that will go away if they do end up on HBO Max.
Right, but they'll get a lot more people watching it on Max than they will even in the theater. So they need to find a way to reduce the costs, and they'll get more people watching.
Then the other thing, like we brought up Miro's name, Thunder Rosa, that could be also as well. Those could be a couple of good names for the AEW Collision show, and let them be kind of features of that. It was nice to see Miro back. I still might hold out hope, Greg, that maybe him and House of Black kind of, link together, because there's something about him that I think he could make it work in there, couldn't he?
I wonder how they do it with him being at least on the um, as a overtly religious character going into the House of
That's true.
Black,
Yeah.
and how that's going to work. Um, I'd be all about watching it.
Yeah.
But I think if they brought him back, because he's been off TV for a long time, and punted on the religious aspect and just use his dark side and put him in the House of Black, it would be great.
Yeah.
Him next to Brody King, next
As
to
I say,
Buddy,
them
next
as a
to,
tag team. Yeah.
man, that's a killer squad right there. So I'd love to see it, but he does great on his own and doing
Yeah.
the his promos. Who didn't live for his promos? Um, so either way, either thing they do with him, I want to see him on TV. I want to see him back, and looks like this is going to be the vehicle for it.
And nice to see Thunder Rosa back on TV. I think she's still working through back injury, which is
Yep.
something, you can't mess around with that, obviously, especially athletes. So hopefully she'll kind of find her way, back into the ring and, do what she can do. Because, man, when she's in there, Greg, it's all about the representation, I think, too. We
Yeah.
don't see many Hispanic women, sorry, killing the game like she can. So, yeah. Dynamite, we had Claudio defeat Ray Phoenix. I kind of forgot Ray Phoenix had the Ring of Honor tag team titles, Greg. I thought they were going to, I just completely blanked out that they had that. So this was a double Jeopardy match, which is kind of a cool aspect to do. So now
Yeah.
Claudio will get him and probably Yuta again, World or Ring of Honor tag team title shot. And really fantastic match. Obviously, these guys work well together because you can have Claudio go, acrobatic when he needs to, but he works so well in the wrestling ring. But then you have Ray Phoenix, can do what he can do. So, what do you think about the first match, Greg, on Dynamite?
Great match. I love both of these guys, and the Ring of Honor uh, brand is falling off the map on AEW
Yeah.
for a little while. So to see that match come up with consequences for Ring of Honor uh, was fresh and new, and love the double jeopardy aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, those two delivered us a banger. So I expect nothing less.
FTR's promo. Greg, I'm just done with. We're just gonna put. Well, now I will say it's a little bit intriguing putting Mark Briscoe as the referee, but it totally feels like he's gonna side with Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, right?
You'd think, but I can see it
But
going
if
the
we
other
want to
way
move
too.
on, then you just need to have FTR win and move on.
Right.
Or maybe he
That
accidentally, cost Lethal and Jeff Jarrett.
right. And the telling part was the setup to him getting the DDT from Dax
Yeah.
and
The
make it
beer.
look like he's going to lean to the Jeff Jarrett team side of things. So
They were all coming out. I liked how Jeff Jarrett just threw the cup away. I wonder if he's a non-drinker now because he did not partake in the beer bath. So Orange Cassidy keeps rolling, Greg. But Daniel Garcia, we got to get him back on the right page, right?
yeah, I mean, first of all, I hated they took his music away and gave him whatever that thing is that he's coming out to now. I hate it. I loved his old music, and as soon as that was one of the reasons I was ready and locked in for his walkout.
Yeah.
And then this new thing starts playing. Like, wait a minute, what happened? See, that's probably why he lost. So, you know, that's my only beef with Tony Khan
I
is
don't
changing
remember the last
guys'
time he
music.
picked up a win, right?
You're probably right.
Man,
He's been
what's it?
taking some L's lately,
Yeah,
but maybe that's the setup for him. Getting out of
finally,
the sports
I was gonna say
entertainment business
finally
and
breaking away.
right
Uh,
because he got the moves like Jagger, but he's not picking up any wins.
no, he's not. He's not at all. So, speaking of another promo, Christian Cage. Just give me Luchasaurus in the ring, Greg. I want to see what the new Luchasaurus is all about, right?
Exactly, and against Wardlow no less. So
But we're
the
getting
whole
Christian
setup.
Cage against Wardlow.
Exactly. And so it's like, okay, why did Christian Cage get a championship match? But he did the traditional heel promo, and I got the match because I'm Christian Cage, blah blah blah, and
You have no
yeah,
dad. He loves to tear on people who have no dads.
right. But I don't know. It's
Maybe he has
the
daddy
less
issues.
the less Christian I see, the better. But you know, as far as the old timers, coming to play, Christian is probably near the head of the pack as far as being guys that it doesn't make you throw up watching him in the ring. Probably because he still looks so young. He looks like he
Yeah,
did um, 10 years ago, 15
yeah.
years ago. So maybe that's part of it. But um, yeah, I'll be ready for them to, switch this over to Luchasaurus versus Wardlow so we can have two,
And really
young
see
stallions in there.
what the difference, like I said, for Luchasaurus. Like, is he going to have his
Yeah.
new finisher? Some new aggressions. But it was a strong night for House of Black. We had Anna Jay get defeated by Julia Hart in their no DQ match. And then we also saw the house rules. I do like this aspect, Greg. Kind of
Yeah.
build up something different. The lighting was good. This is probably like people brought up. This is the lighting you should have used for Bray Wyatt. Not the red light, but just some sort of, darkened ring. And then
Mhm.
having, whether the opponent wants some rules change. Like, I think they did away with the count. They added a 20 count. Was that right? Outside the ring instead of the 10 count.
Yeah.
And then also
Right.
if they want no DQ or not. So, Best Friends and Bandito is probably the best challengers to step up first, just because you can really let the House of Black, play up what this is all about. So, really strong night for House of Black finally, Greg.
Yeah. And you need to be because these guys are just killers. They look the part. They are, they're attractions. People, pop for them big every time they come out, and for good reason. So more of them. I'd love to see a new member
Mm-hmm.
or two, and just keep them strong because they're going to deliver. They're going to be top of the card acts by the end of this year, I bet.
And we got our main event. So John Moxley defeats Kenny Omega, Greg, thanks to Don freaking Callis. I don't know if anybody had Don Callis turning on Kenny Omega on their bingo card, Greg, but this makes me think that Takeshita is easily going to be in the next member of the BCC. Because if you have Callis maybe aligning himself there, I mean, what better way to get a young guy in Takeshita in there, right?
Yeah, it does make sense. And that's the only thing that's
Made sense about it.
makes sense with yeah, is because he's rolling with the elite who are now baby faces, and he is not a baby face. He is
Yeah.
the quintessential heel manager, Carnival Barker guy, and he's Paul Heyman light,
Yeah.
and he's still rolling with the faces. So that fact that this happened was not surprising for that aspect of it
Yeah.
because he's a heel guy through and through. And now that there's no William Regal to speak for the BCC, he's the next best thing. And it was great job of setting the trap and covering it up because Moxley split his head open like a watermelon, and so you figure he'd be the last
So
people
I'm gonna partner with you.
right. If you can't beat him, join him. and
Yeah.
now he's
You gotta
aligning
bleed with
and
them.
turning out Kenny. So that was a shock when I saw that happen. But that's why they do it, and so now he's going to be in league with BCC and doing all their talking for him probably.
I was gonna say
And
they like William Regal was so good for them. They probably needed that, bit of with them. Because
right, and everybody
You have
still
Daniel
hates Don
Bryan
Callis
almost,
too. So
yeah, and I was just because you had Daniel Bryan almost take a de facto leader type aspect, Greg. But I'd rather have Bryan cuts the promos, wrestle more. So
mhm.
yeah, and then Rampage is tonight. So we just got the preview of it. Action Andretti, Greg, that guy. If we remember him, he's going to be on there. We also have the Acclaimed. I think aren't they officially the Rampage tag team? It feels like because I feel like they're on a lot of these.
Yep.
And then of course you got Kip Sabian with Butcher and Blade. You have Tony Storm, Greg, against Allison Kay, she's a Ring of Honor woman, so that's interesting there. What else? We got Swerve Strickland. It's kind of small for me. There we go. Okay, Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage against Dark Order guys. So yeah, the Guns. So we'll get Rampage tonight, and that's what's weird, I guess, Greg. If we're going to have Collision on Saturday night, what's going to happen if Rampage has to get moved, then Collision has to get moved. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Could they put one of those on the streaming side of things? Could you put Rampage on HBO Max, and then that way, it never has to move. But then if you have to move Collision, you can move that. So I'll be very curious to see or even if if Collision's going to be live, every week, then what's going to happen if you have to move it? So, but Rampage will be tonight. I have a wedding, so I will not be watching until tomorrow. So. Any thoughts on Rampage, Greg?
Yeah, nothing spectacular here. I guess the standout match is going to be the Outcast against Team Britt Baker, and I hope the whole aspect with Jericho and Adam Cole. Speaking of Britt Baker, not liking the whole lawyering up and Adam Cole can't be there while Jericho's there and blah blah blah.
I do like that they had Roderick Strong say, "Hey, I'm going to ban the Jericho Association." Though Jericho.
That was a great part.
But like you said, the lawyering thing,
it's lame.
Time to move
you need those two in the ring and popping off against each other. It's great.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that part of it.
Yeah.
I want to see the dude that's fighting Action Andretti. He's a new guy, so I always like to see these new guys they're bringing in. They've been hitting it with, the new talent they've been brought in that haven't been.
Is he one of the Aussie Open guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember
so it's
their
not
names.
new. We've seen him before.
Because he has the IWGP tag team title, I think that is.
Right. And he ambushed Orange Cassidy after his win.
Yeah.
So I want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And he's come in with 2 title belts on his shoulder, so he's got to have something about him. And we haven't seen him do anything. So, but the guys they've chosen to bring in and showcase that we haven't seen, like the Kingo was a great example of that. Yeah. This guy's quickly become one of my favorites. And we're starting to see him on the regular. And now this guy
making his way back.
Yep.
He was there for a hot minute. Now it looks like he is official. So, yeah. How about anything for our last call? Like I said, I just want to say, big shout out to my mom. The best mom there is, Greg. Sorry. She won it years ago, 42 years ago 41 years ago when she had me. But she's a very impressive woman who just does way too much for us. So it'll be awesome to have a good evening celebrating my sister tonight, Greg, and then we'll have a little lunch tomorrow. Yes, it is some of my family members like, well, we're spending the wedding together. We don't have to do. My mom's like, no, it's still Mother's Day. We're still doing a little
Right.
something for tomorrow. Just some light light lunch at 11 or so, and then kind of have the day. So, but congrats to my sister Bernadette on her upcoming wedding tonight. Her fiance Lewis have been together 10 years. Yeah, I think so, 8 or 10 years together.
Nice.
Been engaged past year or so, year and a half. So they are finally tying the knot here, and luckily this time, Greg, I don't know if you remember my brother's wedding, James. He had it where we had a wedding at a church, so the church had to be done by a certain time, but then the reception was later, so we had like a little bit of almost a 2 hour window. This time it's a lot easier. We have the ceremony for about 20 minutes, if that, and then we go right to the reception hall for a cocktail hour and all that. So it'll be kind of nice to have
Nice.
all in the same venue, but both weddings will be fantastic. And so that leaves me as the oldest of my family, Greg, and my youngest brother left still without. Now he has a steady girlfriend of about 4 years. So yes, Greg, the timing is impressive for me to. My mail order bride should be here in about no. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of fun, Greg. But yeah. So that was my
Yeah,
last call, all about family today. So how about your last call for the day?
hey, that's what's up. Nothing wrong with that. So shout out to Bernadette. Congratulations. Shout out to the moms.
Yeah. Will you be seeing your
Preemptively,
mom tomorrow?
no, mine's
Oh, you
been
have to work.
no, my mom, ascended a long time
Oh,
ago. So
I'm very sorry. So,
it's all good. It's all good. So shout out to the queen of my castle. She's a mom, so going to treat her tomorrow.
okay.
And I've inherited her family, so her mom's still alive, and there's still going to be some mothers to treat on that end. So
Good.
early happy Mother's Day to them.
What kids does she have? What ages are her kids?
She is a grandmother, and she has a adult son. So
Okay.
hopefully he's will make an appearance somehow too. And but I get to be the leader of the band for
Yeah.
this show.
Yeah.
And shout out to me because last weekend I predicted the winner of the Kentucky Derby,
Oh
and
wow! How about that? You put some
all I
money
did
on it.
was no, but all I did, I wish I had now. All I did was hear the names, and once I heard the name, I was like, "That's it." Just playing into my nerdiness.
Yeah.
Being a Dungeons and Dragons player since second edition. They're up
Have you
to
seen
fifth
that?
or
Did
sixth
you see the
edition.
movie yet?
No, I haven't, but that's in the plans.
Yeah.
But
Looks
I've
kind of
always
fun.
played Wizards and favorite Wizards. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movies, so centered around the wizard. Really, it's the Gandalf show. It's about getting the ring back to Mordor, but it's the Gandalf show. Just a
Yeah.
minute. So I love wizards. I named my son after a wizard.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and of course, mage is another name for wizard. So
Yeah.
as soon as I heard mage, I'm like, that's my horse. And boom, mage wins. Game recognized game. So, shout out to me for
Shout
watching
out to
one
you.
Kentucky Derby and picking the winner. That'll probably be the only every time I ever pull that off, unless Mage keeps running.
He didn't get put down afterwards, Greg.
No, he's still alive and
We
kicking.
went dark last week with that.
Right. So
I still think that's so sad. But anyways.
it is. A bunch of horses aren't here to speak for themselves today. And I still shout out my sons. We're gonna retool, reload, and put the league on notice next year with a
Phoenix,
full off
okay.
season. And the NFL release release their schedules out
You saw where my
yesterday.
Colts are headed to Frankfurt, Germany for a game with the Patriots.
Oh man,
Yeah, there's going to be
very nice.
2 weeks of Germany games. So there's one the week before we play, and then you've been there, right? You've been to Germany.
Yep, I went last year, and I saw the stadium that they played in. The bus I was on rode right past it. I got to see the stadium
It says it's not very big,
right there.
actually. The
Compared to
seat,
other stadiums,
yeah,
it, it's probably a mid-sized stadium. It's not
yeah,
huge.
yeah. They were because on the sports talk radio they were looking up um, the capacity. It's at 50,000, but for NFL games it's about 48, which is the low. That's
Yeah,
almost like
it's
that's almost a college um, Big Ten school. Maybe a
right.
little bit lighter. So kind of interesting. It should be interesting to see what the crowd is all about that for.
And
That.
one thing's for sure, they're going to be singing West Virginia loud and proud. Um, they did last year, and when I went last year and found the one place that resembled a nightclub,
Mhm.
it had a guy doing a one-man show as a DJ and playing on a
Take me home,
guitar and a
country road.
keyboard, and they all started singing "Country Roads" out of nowhere. I was like, "What is that?" I'm in
Well,
Germany
remember we
across.
got the end of Clash at the Castle, Greg. That's what was that. That was Tyson Fury and Drew
Yep, Drew
singing that
McIntyre.
up.
Yep, I
So,
was like, "What is it with the Country Roads?" I mean, of all the songs in all the world,
they
that
love them
one.
some John Denver, I guess, out there. I always thought
So,
Germans loved David Hasselhoff. Eh?
well, not as
Saturday
much
Night
as
Live.
John Denver,
Saturday Night
apparently.
Live. A callback there. Norm Macdonald. He used to
Right.
he used to always do the
It
Germans
was
love Hasselhoff.
it was crazy. It was crazy. Listen to the rousing rendition of
I'm sure.
Country Roads. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head like, what is this? What time warp have I fallen into? And
Now, did your Chargers get some primetime games?
oh man, we're getting all the love for prime time.
Okay, good.
Six or seven prime time games, just because the last game on our schedule is against Kansas City, and it had TBD. So I'm
So that's
pretty sure that
maybe
means
on
they're going to
flex.
be, yeah, going to
That could
be
be
a
flex.
most likely flex, or it's going to be prime time. It's going to be Herbert versus Mahomes. It's going to be on TV. So they just haven't decided when or
Well, my
what time
Colts
slot.
they were trash last year, Greg. So we get all 1 p.m. starts.
Oh man.
A lot of Spiro Agnew and Iron Eagle, I'm sure, on our lovely CBS calls. We'll see. Hopefully this year will be a good learning uh, environment for Anthony Richardson. I mean, people are already calling it, Greg. They think he's going to show up quicker. I'm okay if you just let him, really learn. You know, if he, But then I also see the argument that what better way to learn than throw him to the fire? So it's an interesting dilemma, I guess, to see where he will show up.
All right. Over under how many games?
Oh, they're Saints. Vegas says 6.5. So are you talking about wins or when he shows up?
When he goes into the permanent starter.
I'll say after a month. I
That's what
think
I
they
was
give it
thinking.
about. But like some people brought up, or whenever like maybe after our bye week, give him that last kind of because I think our bye week is week 10, so maybe the last month of the season. But like I said too, I mean, I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because I can argue either way. There, there's probably not a wrong. I guess there could be a wrong answer depending on how he looks and what happens. But I still think I'd rather him learn a lot. But the best way to learn is be in game action. So it's a
Yep.
slippery slope. So it just and hopefully our offensive line just shows back up. We had the third highest overall paid line, and I think top in the NFL or top in the AFC. And look how bad they looked last year. So that's going to be huge to see if they can turn it around. Give him the protection that he needs. Even though Anthony Richardson is like off the run, Greg, like passing, he's almost better than like in the pocket, which is crazy to think, but that's kind of how he's built. So we shall see. So what is the Chargers win total? What's their over under this year?
I haven't seen the over under, but I'm saying double digits for sure.
Yeah.
So at the worst 10-7, but I expect 11-5 or 11-6, 12-5 in that area. They did a great job drafting. If you look at their draft breakdowns, like every round, they got an A grade, A- grade. So until they get to the very end of the draft, so they picked up some stallions, and we're getting J.C. Jackson back, who missed almost the whole year at cornerback, who's going to be our number one. So they should be, ready
They
to make
got to with the
a
Chiefs
serious
though
run.
twice a year, right?
Yeah, they need to get over that roadblock. I mean, we've beaten the Chiefs in the Herbert era, but not enough. So
Not in the playoffs, have you? Or
yeah, we haven't played them in the playoffs yet,
yeah,
but
that's true. Okay.
that's the showdown we need to get to. But I think it's going to happen. But we have a crazy difficult schedule.
Yeah.
Aside from the Chiefs twice, you still got to play um, the Bills and the AFC East. So the Jets, the
Oh
Bills, the
yeah,
Patriots,
Dolphins.
the Dolphins,
Yeah.
and then
What
I believe
NFC?
the NFC is going to be the Central with Detroit
Okay.
and Minnesota, um, the Bears. So
You'll go see Jordan Love.
right, and the
Isn't
Packers.
that really
So
the most intriguing player to watch this year? Because we haven't seen him play, so it's going to be. I think a lot of eyeballs are going to be on him this year.
true. And we get the Ravens. So we're going to be playing all the up and
Yeah,
coming
Lamar
quarterbacks.
got his deal all done,
Yep.
which was probably never a big surprise. I mean, it was going to happen eventually. So, which I guess it makes you wonder when Herbert's deal's up, Greg. What kind of numbers will he get?
And they're backing the truck up for Herbert for sure. It
He,
doesn't hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen
what
very
is
soon.
was he on the same timeline as Mahomes, or is he a
No,
year
he's a couple of years after Mahomes.
younger? Okay, so I couldn't remember if he was. Yeah, I knew he was younger. So, well, he was with Josh. He was the Josh Allen class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And did Josh Allen get paid? Yeah, I guess he hasn't got paid yet either. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
we could. I guess it should be intriguing. I mean, and then the Colts schedule. Like a lot of people are. Of course, we're doing our schedule looks soft, which I always start hating because every time you say that, Greg, that's when you start losing. Like.
yep.
So yeah, we'll see. All right, well, let's end the show there. We'll end on a nice cheery note, other than like last week. I think we went a little dark, a little lighter this week. So, happy Mother's Day, and enjoy the day, enjoy the weekend. It's really nice here in Indianapolis. It's gonna be a really fun day today. So, enjoy your evening and enjoy the weekend. Go watch some playoff basketball, Game 7, either tonight or tomorrow night. I think it is tonight. Is it tomorrow night?
No, I think it's tonight. The
Yeah,
other
right. So
Game 6 was last night
yeah,
or
so,
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. Yeah, not a lot of likable teams left, but yeah,
No, there
I guess
wasn't.
we'll see who pulls out the titles. All right, well, enjoy the weekend and have a nice day.
Peace.